Welcome back everybody to another MOTOBOB video. You join us at EICMA again for the world's biggest and best motorcycle show in my opinion, and we're at the KTM stand for the unveiling of this, the 990 Duke. Now the 890 Duke in my opinion is one of the best, if not the best, middleweight naked bike on the market, and so with all these changes it's a fairly substantial update. Have they been able to improve upon what was already an excellent bike? Well, here we go with the 13 key things that you need to know to find out. Now, the big one is the engine. It's gone up in capacity, as you can gather, going from an 890 to a 990, and as such, you've got a little bit more performance out of it. So 123 horsepower now at 9,500 RPM and 103 Newton meters of peak torque at 6,750. Granted, that's only 2 horsepower up on the previous generation and 4 Newton meters up, but that peak torque is now made 1,000 RPM lower in the rev range, so that makes it easier to access, pretty much down to that capacity increase. So it's 947cc now, as opposed to the 889 of the previous gen, so about 60 cc's up. There are some other tweaks to the internals though, so there are different camshaft profiles now, longer valve openings, and that's going to help with that peak power. They've also increased rotating mass, they say, so that'll probably give it more of a sense of like weightiness and torquiness. There's a wider radiator for better cooling as well, and then also they've redesigned the exhaust system to help meet Euro 5+ emissions regulations, and this particular bike has got an Akropovich accessory, which I'm sure will sound very nice with this 435-degree firing interval, I believe, on this parallel twin that sort of mimics the sound of their big 75-degree V-twins. Up here to the tank, and it's a new design. Quite often nowadays you see plastic covers on fuel tanks and a simple metal cover inside, so it's nice to see it's still a proper steel fuel tank, and it's 14.5 litres now, which is half a litre up on the previous generation, so it's not going to transform it in terms of range, but you know, every little helps. Fuel economy is said to be 4.7 litres per 100 kilometers travelled on this new 990 engine, and to me that sounds pretty reasonable. I mean, real world figures might vary from that a little bit, but generally that sounds pretty good, and I'll look forward to testing out the range when I get hold of one to review. Now onto the chassis, and we've got a new tubular steel frame design here, and there are changes like the frame now goes outside of the swing arm pivots, and they say they've done that to improve stiffness. So it's an 8% increase in side stiffness and a 5% increase in torsional stiffness, both of which they say will contribute to better handling. Of course, there's a new cast aluminium swing arm design. This has got the airbox and air intakes integrated into it. I think that's pretty similar to the previous generation, but they do say that's a new design. And then the swing arm, they previously said it was high pressure die cast, I believe, and now it's gravity die cast. Personally, not quite sure what the difference is. Do let me know in the comments if you do know, but the result is good for everybody because it's 1.5 kilograms lighter. And they also say they've reduced stiffness on the swing arm by quite a big amount, so 35%, and it does look very different. I think the previous gen had that sort of lattice design where that's a more regular looking swing arm, but the idea is it'll help to improve rear wheel grip. As for the brakes, we've got KTM branded calipers. I believe they're actually made by J1 though, but they're radially mounted, 4-piston, quite sporty looking stuff. The KTM branded brakes that I've ridden in my experience have been pretty good, so I'd expect the same here. 300mm discs, and then you've got a 2-pot caliper at the rear on a 240mm disc. The big change though for this year is that they say the disc itself is lighter, but also the carrier is much lighter, and it saves, combined between the two of them, 500 grams, which is really quite a lot. And the result of that is less rotating mass, which is great for changes in direction and changes of speed, but also less unsprung mass. So the suspension can more easily do its job, leading to better ride quality. Now, before we get on to the next feature, I just want to say a massive thanks to our sponsors this week, Insta360 and Metzeler Tires. Now, Metzelers, in my experience, are absolutely excellent. We've tried plenty of press bikes over the last couple of years that are fitted with Metzelers. Never disappoints. From their Sportec M9 RRs, tried them recently on the Thruxton RS, absolutely brilliant, sticky, sporty tyres. But if you ride all year round and you want something with a bit more distance capability and wear resistance, then the Road Techs are absolutely excellent as well. On the adventure side, I've tried out their Karoo Streets, which are a bit more street biased. The Karoos are more knobbly, a bit more mud clearance. All these tyres, from the riding I've done, have always performed way above expectations. So a massive thanks to Metzeler for their support. And with that, back to the bike. Now look, when I was scripting this video, I saw a few claims in the spec sheet there, like 500 grams saved on the disc and 1.5 kilograms saved on the swing arm. So I was thinking, sounds like they've made it a bit lighter, but reading the specs, They say it's 179 kilograms ready to ride, so oil and coolant, but without a full tank, and fully wet, so full tank, 190 kilograms. I can't actually say though if that's lighter than the previous gen, because they only quote a dry weight for the previous gen and then the ready to ride and wet weight for this bike. So I feel like they're trying to mask a slight weight increase, maybe 1 or 2 kilograms there. A bit more digging and maybe we'll find out. Now my excellent camera operator is asking me to come a bit closer to the saddle here, but there's been a lot of hairy bikers sitting on this bike today, so I'll probably keep my distance. Thing is, it's 825mm in the seat now for this year, which is, I believe, 9mm down on the previous gen, and they say they've also canted it back a little bit by 2 degrees, so it's going to be a touch more sat up and upright than the previous gen. And also you've got 4 different positions for the handlebars. They're adjustable, so you should be able to find something that fits you. The other change they've made around this area is a passenger seat that goes up by 20mm, and they say they've done that to give the passenger better visibility, which is very considerate. There's nothing interesting about staring at the back of somebody's lid for, 2 hours on end. So lovely, KTM, well done. Onto the wheels, and they say that these are very, very, very closely related to those on the 1290 Super Duke R, although on that bike you get a single-sided swing arm, so they've adapted it for the double-sided swing arm on this particular bike. But as such, you've got the same size of tyre, so a 120 by 70 on the front and then a 180 by 55 at the rear. And you'll notice this particular bike looks like it's been doing some stunting or something, because you can see the tyres fully worn through there and there's quite a bit of rubber stuck on the underside of the subframe there. So yeah, it looks like someone's been having a good time on this particular bike. As for the suspension, well, you've got the WP brand, which is their in-house suspension brand. Always really good stuff in my opinion, and this is their Apex line. Same on the shock as well, you've got a WP Apex shock, and one of the things I really like about this is the little thumb adjusters on the tops of the forks for the rebound and compression damping. You've got a separate one on each fork for each, and it means you can make quick changes even while you're on the road without having to stop and get tools out. So a nice feature. One thing they have changed is that they say there are fewer increments. I think there are just 5 settings on the fork and on the shock now, and that apparently makes it, a little bit more intuitive to adjust the suspension. Some people though I think might prefer to have more adjustability, so let me know which you'd prefer down in the comments. Now look, I can already tell that this is not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but it does get a new visual design, including this rather unusual looking headlight. Now it's a stacked projector in the middle, so those are your main lights, but then you've got these DRLs around the outside, and it's a real move away from the sort of signature design language of KTM, which is typically a big piece of, glass with the LEDs inside. This is more just like a frame around it, and I think they've done that to sort of echo the shape of the original. There is some continuity there, but this is a much more modern design, and I think it's going to be a little bit divisive. As for the rest of the bike, well, it is evolution of the 890 Duke, still very modern and angular. This particular color though, this popping orange, I actually think it looks really good on this particular bike. Like the orange wheels as well. If you don't like the orange, there is a black version available as well. We'll put a picture of that on the screen now. That's probably a bit more stealthy. But then in the cockpit, we've got a big update to the TFT display. It looks physically similar, but what they've changed is the menus and the layout of them, making them easier to navigate, and also introduce those graphics that they have on some of their other bikes that kind of explain what some of the rider aids do to make them easier to understand. I really like it. I've had it on press bikes from Husqvarna as well, which is a sister company. They use the same approach. It makes it fun to use, but I do agree, much easier to get the gist of what a particular rider aid does. I think another nice little change as well is that you've got 4 favorite slots along the bottom, so you can show the most relevant information to you. And then also we've got some revisions to the riding modes. So you've still got 3 standard modes of range, street and sport, but also you can pay more for a performance mode and a track mode. Now, performance and track, I think, do similar stuff. They allow you to turn off more of the intervention for more control over the bike. But what track does is gives you a different layout on the dash and introduces some other information like a lap timer and stuff like telemetry data. To me, this looks like a brilliant update for this bike. It looks like a nice evolution, lots of extra features and spec and tweaks to the chassis. But the only problem I've got is that the price looks like to me that it's gone up quite significantly. If I've got this correctly, they're saying bike's available in February 2024 and it'll be £12,995. Now the previous gen 890 Duke R was like £11,599, and stuff like a Street Triple RS, which you have to consider as a competitor for this. It's a little bit smaller in capacity, but similar in capability, is 11.5 grand as well. So it does make this look a little pricey, but maybe it's just that good. We'll certainly find out out when we get to ride one. As always, let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. If you want to see all of our EICMA coverage, we'll put a playlist on the screen now. It's got all the bikes, loads of bikes this week, so do follow that playlist if you want to see everything as soon as it goes live. Hit subscribe as well if you've not already. Many thanks for watching this video, and we'll be back very shortly with another video.